Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Donovan and today I want to share with you my full review of the Cubot King Kong 3. So this is a phone I've been using over the last 10 days and I will be right off the bat honest with you and say that this is not going to be a phone for everyone. However, it will be a great phone for those that might be interested in the kinds of things that this phone offers. So first of all, it's available at a very budget-friendly price of $160. So I'll leave a link down in the description if you're interested in checking it out. Now, the second thing to mention, other than being an inexpensive device, is that this is a very rugged phone. So with that being said, it's pretty heavy. So in comparison, here's my Google Pixel 3 XL. This thing is definitely heavier, and I have a case and screen protector on my Google Pixel 3 XL, and this one is definitely significantly heavier. And that's because of the steel plating that it has over here on the left and on the right. And yeah, it's just a very rugged design. Now, this only has a 5.5-inch display, so in comparison, we'll put it up next here. And it also has a LCD display. So there's the Google Pixel 3 XL and the Cubot King Kong 3. So similar size in terms of the footprint of the phone. It's obviously considerably thicker than this phone, even with the case on it. But then the screen size itself is actually considerably smaller. Now this has a 5.5-inch 18:9 aspect ratio display, but it's relatively small, so I just want to keep that in mind here. But one selling point is that this has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and we'll talk more about that battery life here in just a little bit, but battery life is pretty impressive. So a few other things I want to mention here about this phone. So number one, it's IP68 water resistant, so that's great. In terms of the build, you get some IP 68 water resistance. Also full netcom. What does that mean? Well, it means that it supports all the major GSM networks. That's worldwide, but also in the United States. So I'm using it on T-Mobile with full 4G LTE coverage. We have Android 8.1 NFC, so there is NFC built into it, so that's awesome. So you can use it for contactless payments. It does not have wireless charging, so for those of you that are interested in that, it does not support that. But we do have 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage, and you can expand that with the micro SD slot here. That's also the nano SIM slot as well. So overall, this phone for certain people is going to be absolutely fantastic. So let's talk some more about the details of what you can expect from the Cubot King Kong 3. Alright, so the next area I want to talk about on the Cubot King Kong 3 is the performance. So this is running the Helio P23 processor that's clocked at 2.5 gigahertz and 4 gigs of RAM. So what does that mean for the average user? Well, I have up here the Geekbench 4 score, and you can see it's running a single core score of around 900 and a multi-core score of around 4,000. So for the average user, what is that experience going to be like? Well, I can say that in my experience, everything so far has been pretty snappy. I really haven't run into any issues in terms of performance. So you can see as I go through my Google Now feed, it's running that pretty smoothly. In terms of the games that I've been playing here, you can see some of the games. So Star Wars Force Arena, Street Fighter 4, Hill Climb Racer 2. My kids have been playing some Disney Now games as well. And overall performance has been pretty impressive, to be quite honest with you. Now, if I come down here, I want to mention that there is an app called the Cubot Power Master. So this would be something similar to like what's called DuraSpeed. On most MediaTek phones, you get something called DuraSpeed that's basically going to allow certain apps to use higher clock speeds. So you can see I've just turned it on for anything that's graphic intensive, essentially. So if it's going to need higher end graphics, then I just turn that DuraSpeed on, or the Cubot Power Master, and it's been able to handle all the games. All of the video has been no issue at all. And so I would say in terms of general day-to-day usage, if you are someone who uses your phone pretty typically, like social media, you use it for maybe just some light gaming, this thing will handle all of that with no problem. Alright, so the next area I want to talk about is the battery life on the Cubot King Kong 3, and as expected with a 6,000 mAh battery, this thing is an absolute beast when it comes to battery life. So this is just a couple of screenshots I took over my usage of the device. So you can see on this particular day I was at 2% battery life, and that was with 10 hours and 31 minutes of screen on time. And you can see that was over the course of actually 4 days and 37 minutes. So 4 full days of battery life. Now, obviously, for a lot of people, 10 hours of screen on time over 4 days is probably a little bit low. I think average person's probably going to use more like 4 hours of screen on time. So with that said, you're probably going to get about 3 days of battery life in general with this device. So you can see some of the usage that I had here. So Google Play services, now that's draining the battery because of all the standby time there. YouTube, Disney Now, Netflix, Force Arena. So lots of heavy usage on this phone, so it wasn't like I was just babying it, but we were playing some games, let my kids watch some videos on it, and screen on time has been absolutely fantastic, and battery life just in general has been really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it's at right now, and you can probably see right there that I did actually have, let's go back there, I have the screen to nearly full brightness, not completely full brightness, but that's going to drain the battery obviously a lot faster. But let's just go ahead and see what the battery life has been like. So here is what it is right now. So 70%, that's looks like it says about 2 days of battery life can be expected. Last full charge was a little over a day ago. 3 hours and 13 minutes of screen on time at 70%. So that's pretty impressive, honestly. And I will say that probably in a typical use situation, you're going to get a minimum of 2 days, probably up to 3 or even 4 full days of battery life, which is really impressive. And so if you're just looking for a phone with just superb battery life, I can easily recommend the Cubot King Kong 3. Alright, so the next area I want to talk about is the software on this device. So you can see here it's running Android 8.1 with an August security patch. So let me just put this out there right away that if you're looking for a phone that's going to get a lot of updates, I probably wouldn't expect it from this one, especially considering that it's November right now and it's running an August security patch. Obviously, Android Pie is out as well. So this is running Android Oreo. Now, the good news in terms of software is that it's running basically just stock software. So if you like stock Android, this could definitely be a phone for you, because really, as far as I can see, the only non-stock things that they have on here, of course, we've already mentioned that Cubot Power Master. That's that DuraSpeed app that you use to play games with. But then also we have this little indicator light, so you can adjust what the little indicator light, there is like a little notification light up here next to the camera. So you can adjust what it's going to show and what colors it's going to show. But outside of that, there really is no other customizable software on here. So it's running pretty much just stock Android. So that's a good thing in some ways, and maybe a negative thing in some other ways. But definitely I wouldn't expect any kind of major software updates on this phone over the history of using it. Alright, so the next area I want to talk about on this phone is the cameras, and that's probably honestly the biggest weakness of this phone is the camera quality. So we have a 16 and 2 megapixel camera here on the rear, and then also a 13 megapixel camera up here on the front. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you and say that my overall experience with the cameras is just flat out not all that great. So I'm just going to show you a few samples and kind of show you why I think it's not all that great. Number one, I'm going to take a picture of this box here, and you'll see that there's a little bit of a delay there. So that's one thing. If you're trying to take a picture of something that's moving quickly, there will be just a slight delay. So there is an option for zero shutter delay, but that honestly is just not all that great. So you can see low light photos. This is a picture of my Tick Pods. Just haven't been all that great as well, which you can expect from a phone at this price point. If you're in good lighting and you don't mind a little bit of shutter delay, then honestly it's going to be just fine. And if you don't really care about always taking the best photos, then I think this phone will be just fine for you. But just be aware of its limitations in terms of the camera quality. It's okay and it's doable and it's usable, but I wouldn't recommend it for someone who is looking for a really good camera. Alright, so I want to go ahead and conclude this video with some of my final thoughts on the Cubot King Kong 3. So who is this phone for? Well, I think it's for someone looking for a very specific type of phone. Number one, it's an inexpensive phone, so if you're looking for an inexpensive phone, then this could fit you. Number two, it's extremely rugged, so that is definitely something. If you're someone who's maybe a construction worker or maybe just is kind of rough on phones, this could be a phone for you. And number three, you want a phone with amazing battery life. That is definitely the three biggest selling points of this phone. Now, performance-wise, it's plenty fine. I think for the average user, you're really not going to run into any major performance issues with this phone. Also, running stock Android software is going to be a positive for a lot of people. Where the negatives come, and this is probably the biggest negative easily, is the camera. So if you need great cameras, if you don't need great cameras, then fine, this phone can be fine for you. But if you're looking for a phone with better cameras, then obviously you're going to need to go to something maybe like a Samsung Galaxy S8 Active. Obviously significantly more expensive than what you're going to get here, but that's a phone that combines all those things that we just mentioned, but also has very good cameras. So with that being said, this is the Cubot King Kong 3. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.